Um, Sing a Song of Sixpence, A Pocket Full of Rye, 4 and 20 Blackbirds Baked in a Pie.
Mm, you know the tune.
Yeah, we all do. I mean, it's just completely embedded in our collective consciousness,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
It's something you hum while bouncing a toddler on your knee. Or maybe something you remember from one of those brightly colored picture books,
It represents innocence.
right? Nostalgia. A simpler time.
It does. It's basically a cornerstone of the nursery,
Hmm.
which honestly makes it all the more jarring when that innocence is just totally stripped away.
Yeah.
Imagine that rhyme not as a playful song, but as a blueprint, a script for a series of brutal, highly calculated murders.
It really messes with your head.
Yeah.
What happens when Sing a Song of Sixpence stops being a song and starts being a crime scene?
That is exactly the chilling juxtaposition we are exploring today.
It's the kind of thing that makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Hmm.
So for today's deep dive, we are cracking open one of the darker, I'd say more cynical entries in the canon. We are looking at A Pocket Full of Rye book by Agatha Christie.
It is an absolute classic, and I'm really glad we're tackling this one because, frankly, it often gets overlooked.
Yeah, in favor of like Orient Express.
Right. Or, and then there were none,
No.
a Pocket Full of Rye book by Agatha Christie is special.
Special and twisted.
Very twisted. And right off the bat, I want to establish our mission for this deep dive for those of you listening.
Let's hear it.
We aren't just going to recap a whodunit. Yes, there is a puzzle, and it is a brilliant mechanical puzzle. But if you look closer, this book is a scathing study of post-war British society.
100%.
It's about family dysfunction, the toxicity of new money, and that pervasive haunting theme, how the past casts very long, very deadly shadows over the present.
Old sins have long shadows.
Exactly.
That is practically the tagline for this deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
So let's set the stage. We aren't starting in a cozy village library.
No, no spooky manor house with lightning crashing outside.
We are starting in the city, London, 1953. The offices of the Consolidated Investments Trust.
Right. And something very specific happens here with the setting. It's sleek, it's modern, but it's completely sterile.
Code.
Very cold. And we are introduced to this world not through high-stakes trading, but through the office ritual of tea.
The sacred tea. I mean, it's fascinating how much page time is dedicated to this.
It's world-building at its absolute finest. In 1950s Britain, the tea ritual is a strict hierarchy. It tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamics.
Oh, yeah. On one hand, you have Miss Summers.
Right, the newest typist.
She's described as having a mild, worried face like a sheep.
Poor Miss Summers.
She is inefficient, she is terrified, and her great crime in life is that she can never quite tell if the kettle is boiling.
We've all been there.
We've all been the new person who can't figure out the office coffee machine and feels like everyone is judging them.
Exactly. She represents the anxiety of the lower rungs of the ladder. But then you have the ultimate contrast, Miss Grosvenor.
The high priestess of the office.
She really is. Miss Grosvenor is Rex Fortescue's personal secretary. She is described as glorious. She literally sails through the office. And here is a detail that really places us in time. She wears expensive black market nylons.
That's a huge flex for the 50s.
Massive. You have to remember, post-war Britain was still dealing with rationing and austerity. Nylons were gold dust.
Right.
Wearing them is a loud display of status and access. Miss Grosvenor treats the other typists like insects. She is the only one allowed to perform the sacred rite of making tea for the boss.
For Mr. Rex Fortescue, let's talk about the boss. Usually in a murder mystery, you want the victim to be somewhat sympathetic.
Or at least neutral.
Right, but Rex.
Rex is a monster. He is what you might call a robber baron of the financial world.
A large, flabby, tyrannous tycoon.
The book explicitly tells us he is not a nice man. He swindles, he deals in incredibly shady markets, he bullies his staff, and he treats his family like property.
He exudes this intense aura of invincibility.
He is the king in his counting house.
Which makes it all the more shocking when that invincibility just pops.
Like a balloon.
So picture the scene. It's a Tuesday morning. Miss Grosvenor does her swan-like walk into the inner sanctum, places the tea on the desk. Rex grunts because he can't be bothered to say thank you.
Naturally.
She leaves. 10 minutes later, absolute chaos.
Panic. A strangled, agonized cry tears through the soundproof door. Miss Grosvenor rushes back in, and her perfect poise is completely shattered.
She finds Rex contorted in agony.
Having violent convulsions, it is a gruesome, visceral death.
And what I found so interesting is the reaction of the staff. These are supposedly reasonably intelligent women, but the moment the routine is broken by horror, they fall into complete idiocy.
It's the bystander effect, or just the paralysis of shock. They have no idea what to do. One suggests putting a cork in his mouth.
A cork.
Another starts looking up doctor in the phone book, but gets confused because it's not the classified directory.
They even debate calling 999 because they think it might involve the police.
And that would never do for a respectable firm.
It's a comedy of errors, but deadly.
It perfectly highlights how fragile the veneer of professionalism really is. They eventually get help, but it's too late. Rex Fortescue dies before he even reaches St. Jude's Hospital.
And just like that, the king is dead.
So now we have a body, and we need a detective. Enter Inspector Neil.
Inspector Neil is a fantastic character. He's described as looking very smart and soldierly.
He seems like a standard routine man, but he actually has a very imaginative mind. He speculates. He imagines.
And the first thing he has to deal with is the medical report from Dr. Bernsdorf at the hospital.
This is where the science gets really cool and really scary. The diagnosis isn't arsenic.
It isn't cyanide.
It's something much weirder. It's taxine.
Taxine. Actually, I had to look this up. It's not something you hear about on the news every day.
No, it's an alkaloid derived from the yew tree, the berries, or the needles. Dr. Bernsdorf is actually quite excited about it because it's so delightfully unusual.
It's nasty stuff. It disrupts the heart's electrical system.
But here's the medical puzzle that Inspector Neil has to solve immediately, and it's a matter of biology and timing.
Right, because Rex drank the tea and died 10 minutes later. Logic suggests the poison was in the tea.
Logic would suggest that, yes. But the science says otherwise. Taxine is fast-acting, but not that fast when ingested orally.
Because it has to process.
If you eat it or drink it, it takes time to break down in the stomach and enter the bloodstream. We're talking an hour, maybe 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, let's unpack this for you guys listening. If it takes an hour to kick in, and he died 10 minutes after the tea, he was already poisoned when he walked into the office.
Precisely. The tea didn't kill him. The tea was just a hot liquid that might have stimulated blood flow and triggered the final collapse.
But the weapon was loaded hours earlier.
And where was he hours earlier? At breakfast, at his home, Yew Tree Lodge.
And he had a heavy breakfast, right?
Eggs, bacon, toast. That heavy food would have slowed the absorption of the poison even further. Dr. Bernsdorf calls it the breakfast with the Borges theory.
Breakfast with the Borgias. Love that phrasing. So the crime scene isn't the office, it's the home.
But before Neely heads to the house, there is one detail from the body that stops everyone in their tracks. It's the detail that gives the book its title.
Sergeant Hay is cataloging the personal effects. Wallet, keys, handkerchief. And then in the right-hand pocket of this bespoke, expensive suit jacket, he finds grain.
Loose grain, cereal, specifically rye.
A literal pocket full of rye.
It's absurd, and Inspector Neil knows it. Rex Fortescue wasn't a farmer. He didn't keep pigeons.
He wasn't in the agricultural business at all.
There is absolutely no logical reason for a financial tycoon to walk around with a handful of grain in his pocket.
It's completely out of character, which means it was put there.
It's the first sign that this isn't just a murder for gain. It's a murder with a message. Someone is playing a game.
So, armed with this bizarre clue, Inspector Neil heads to Yew Tree Lodge. And if you thought the office was cold, this house sounds suffocating.
Yew Tree Lodge. The name itself is a massive clue. It's surrounded by yew hedges, the very source of the poison. It's literally wrapped in the murder weapon.
It's described as a pretentious red brick mansion.
It's not a true country home with history. It's a rich man's display of wealth. Stockbroker Tudor. It feels artificial, and the people living inside are just as prickly as the hedges.
Let's meet the cast of suspects. It's a classic snake pit. First, we have the grieving widow. Or, well, not so grieving. Adele Fortescue.
Adele is the archetype of the trophy wife. She's 30 years younger than Rex. She's described as a sexy piece with incredibly expensive tastes.
She was a manicurist before Rex found her.
Which, in the heavily class-conscious 1950s, is shorthand for vulgar or common. She's having an affair with a tennis coach named Vivienne Dubois.
Classic.
And she is clearly more interested in the inheritance than her husband's death. She acts like the queen of the house, but the stepchildren absolutely despise her.
Speaking of stepchildren, we have Percival, or Val.
Percival Fortescue. The police nickname him Percy Prim, and that tells you everything you need to know. He is the eldest son, a partner in the business.
He is fussy, parsimonious, conservative.
He is terrified that his father was ruining the business with wild speculation. He's the good boy. On paper, he shows up to work, he saves money, but he's deeply unpleasant.
He's a buzzkill. And he has a wife, Jennifer.
Jennifer is interesting. She's a former hospital nurse. She nursed Val through a bout of pneumonia, and that's how they met.
She's described as plump, bored, and complaining constantly about money.
Percival keeps her on a very tight allowance. She feels isolated in this big house and spends her time shopping or going to the cinema. She seems harmless, mostly just dissatisfied.
Then there's the daughter, Elaine.
The intense one. She's the schoolgirl type, even though she's a full-grown adult. She runs the Girl Guides. She's emotional.
Her big drama is that she wants to marry a man named Gerald Wright.
Right, a schoolmaster with anti-capitalist views. Rex despised him, naturally, and forbade the marriage, threatening to cut Elaine off without a penny.
So she has a very strong motive: money and freedom.
And we can't forget the outliers in the house. Aunt Effie.
Miss Ramsbottom. She is the eccentric moral center of the deep dive today.
She's Rex's sister-in-law from his first marriage. She lives upstairs, cooks her own food on a gas ring to avoid being poisoned.
Which is highly ironic considering what just happened.
Exactly. She is obsessed with sin and judgment. She views the whole family as godless, but she's sharp as a tack and she sees everything.
And finally, the staff. Because in a house like this, the staff are the gears that keep the machine running.
You have Mary Dove, the housekeeper. She's known as the admirable Miss Craigton. She's incredibly efficient, calm, and keeps the house running perfectly.
But she has a mysterious lack of background.
She's almost too perfect. She observes everything with a detached, cynical amusement. And then there's Gladys.
Gladys Martin.
Gladys is key. She's the maid. She's described as adnoidal, silly, and credulous. She's obsessed with glamour and boys, constantly reading movie magazines.
She's the bottom of the hierarchy, the invisible piece of the machinery. She serves the food, she clears the table, but nobody really sees her.
So Neil is interviewing these people, trying to figure out who poisoned the marmalade.
Because that's what they figured out it was, right? The marmalade pot.
Yes. Through a pure process of elimination, everyone had toast and coffee, but Rex was the only one who consistently ate marmalade.
It's a very targeted method.
But while Neil is digging into alibis and motives, the nursery rhyme connection finally clicks for him.
It's the sing a Song of Sixpence thing.
Exactly. Neil realizes the setup is just too perfect to be accidental. Rex is the king. He was in his counting house, the city office, counting out his money.
And the rye in his pocket is the pocket full of rye.
But that's just the first verse. What about the blackbirds? 4 and 20 blackbirds baked in a pie.
This is where the backstory gets genuinely dark. Neil discovers that this isn't the first incident.
Months prior, 4 dead blackbirds were found on Rex's desk at the office.
It was dismissed as a spiteful prank by a disgruntled employee, wasn't it?
Yes. But then there was a dinner party at Yew Tree Lodge. A pie was served. When they cut it open...
Dead blackbirds. Actual dead birds stuffed inside the crust instead of the veal and ham.
It absolutely terrified the family. It was gruesome.
That's psychological warfare. That's not a prank. That's a sustained campaign of terror.
Exactly. And this connects to a business deal from the distant past. The Blackbird Mine.
Ah, here come the old sins we talked about.
Years ago, Rex went to East Africa with a partner, a man named Mackenzie. They were looking for gold at the Blackbird Mine. Mackenzie died out there.
The official story was fever.
Rex came back, claimed the mine was totally worthless, and left Mackenzie's widow and children completely destitute. He stole their future.
It's the classic robber baron origin story.
Yeah.
Mrs. Mackenzie even came to the house years ago, cursing Rex and promising revenge.
So Inspector Neil is thinking, is this the Mackenzie children? Are they back for revenge? Following the nursery rhyme to taunt him before killing him.
It's a very strong theory. It explains the blackbirds. It explains the rye. It suggests either insanity or a very calculated revenge disguised as insanity.
And just as this theory is forming, the prodigal son returns.
Lance Fortescue.
Lance is the total wild card. He is the younger son, the bad boy. He's everything Percival is not. He's attractive, tall, adventurous, charming.
He was kicked out of the firm years ago for check fraud, right?
Yeah, though he claims he didn't do it and was framed. He's been living in Kenya, far away from the family drama.
And he just shows up out of nowhere.
Well, Rex summoned him. Apparently, the old man wanted to make peace, or perhaps use Lance as a weapon to terrorize Percival. Lance arrives with his new wife, Pat.
I really like Pat. She feels like the only normal person in this entire saga.
Pat is essentially the audience surrogate. She's twice widowed, Bad luck seems to follow her, but she's honest. She loves horses and dogs and the outdoors.
She walks into this suffocating house and just wants to open a window.
Yeah.
Even Aunt Effie, who hates everyone, genuinely likes Pat.
But Lance's arrival throws the house into complete turmoil. Percival is panicked. He thinks Lance is going to charm his way back into the firm and ruin them with wild schemes.
There is incredible tension between the brothers. You have the boring, responsible brother versus the charismatic, reckless one.
It's Cain and Abel in bespoke suits.
So now the whole family's assembled. You've got the tension boiling over. The police are swarming the house. And then the rhyme continues.
The escalation is horrific. We move to the next verse. The queen was in the parlor eating bread and honey.
Adele.
Exactly. It's the afternoon of the exact same day Rex died. Adele is having afternoon tea in the library. She's eating scones and honey.
She's sitting there maybe thinking about her massive inheritance, maybe thinking about her lover.
She drinks her tea and she dies.
Just like that.
Cyanide. Instant death.
In a house full of police. That is incredibly brazen.
It's audacious. It shows the killer is either desperate or feels completely untouchable. But the killer isn't done. The rhyme has one more victim. The maid was in the garden hanging out the clothes.
Oh, this is the one that really gets me. This is where it stops being a fun puzzle and becomes a genuine tragedy. Gladys Martin.
Poor Gladys. During the chaos of Adele's death, Gladys goes missing. The police are searching everywhere. They eventually find her body late that night.
In the garden, near the clothesline, she's been strangled with a stocking.
But the detail, the specific grotesque detail that makes it look like the work of a maniac.
A clothes peg. The killer clipped a wooden clothes peg onto her dead nose. Down came a blackbird and nipped off her nose.
It is deeply gruesome. It's so unnecessary. It proves that the rhyme isn't just a coincidence. It's a script that must be followed to the absolute letter.
It suggests a severe level of mania, or a very calculated plan to look like mania.
Yeah.
Because putting a clothes peg on a dead girl's nose serves no practical purpose at all.
It's pure theater. It's designed to make the police look for a lunatic instead of a rational killer.
At this point, Inspector Neal is doing a great job, but he's dealing with something that feels way outside standard police procedure. It's psychological warfare.
And this is the moment, finally, where our favorite knitting detective shows up.
Enter Miss Marple. And I love her entrance here. She doesn't arrive to solve the millionaire's murder. She doesn't care about high finance or tax scene.
She comes because she reads about Gladys Martin in the paper.
Gladys was one of her girls, right?
Yes. Gladys trained under Miss Marple in St. Mary Mead. Miss Marple feels a profound sense of responsibility. She tells Neil she was a good girl. A silly girl, but a good girl.
And that distinction, silly, is crucial to her investigation.
Miss Marple brings a totally different energy to the whole thing. She's not looking for fingerprints. She's looking at human nature.
She represents sanity in a house full of madness. She sits there, knitting matinee coats for babies that don't exist, looking like a harmless old biddy.
But she is gathering intel constantly. She talks to Mrs. Percival. She talks to Pat. She realizes almost immediately that the nursery rhyme isn't just the pattern of a crazy person.
It's a tool. It was used to manipulate someone.
She focuses squarely on Gladys. She knows Gladys wouldn't hurt a fly, but she also knows Gladys is easily manipulated by men.
Right. She keeps asking, who was Gladys seeing? Did she have a young man?
Because Miss Marple knows that a silly girl like Gladys, someone starved for affection and obsessed with romance, would do almost anything if a handsome man told her it was a game or a secret.
While Miss Marple is working the psychological angle, Inspector Neal is actively chasing down the Mackenzie revenge theory. And honestly, it's a pretty convincing red herring.
It really is. You have the backstory of the mine. You have Mrs. Mackenzie in the mental home telling people she raised her children to kill Rex.
And then you have the revelation about Mary Dove. Neal strongly suspects she might be the Mackenzie daughter.
But then we get a massive twist.
A huge twist.
It turns out Jennifer, Mrs. Percival, the boring, complaining nurse, she is actually Ruby Mackenzie.
Whoa. The nurse wife is the avenging daughter.
Yes, she admits it. She married Percival purely as revenge. She wanted to be close to the family to destroy them, or at least get her family's money back.
She admits she put the dead blackbirds on the desk and in the pie to scare Rex. She wanted to make his life absolutely miserable.
So she's the murderer. Case closed.
Not quite so fast. She admits to the prank, but she strongly denies the murder.
And frankly, she doesn't seem to have the, let's call it the flair for the nursery rhyme murders. She wanted money, not a grotesque spectacle.
Plus, the murders continued after she was already under heavy suspicion, It just doesn't quite fit.
Okay, so if it's not the Mackenzie girl revenge plot, we have to look closely at the money. The firm is failing. Who actually benefits from these deaths?
This brings us to a really crucial legal detail, the Comorientes clause.
Comorientes. That sounds like Latin.
It is. It refers to simultaneous death.
Mm-hmm.
Rex's will had a very specific clause. Adele had to survive him by exactly 1 month to inherit 100,000 pounds.
Now, 100,000 pounds in 1953 is an absolute fortune. It's millions today.
If that money went to Adele, it would leave the firm completely, and the firm is broke. It would bankrupt the business entirely.
But because Adele died on the exact same day as Rex, she didn't survive him by a month.
Therefore, the 100,000 pounds stays in the residuary estate, and the residuary legatee, the person who gets everything left over, is Percival.
So by Adele dying, Percival saves the family business. That is a massive, overwhelming motive.
It's the strongest motive in the deep dive by far. Percival saves his capital, but here's the problem. Percival has an alibi, a rock-solid cast-iron alibi.
He was in London when Adele died. He physically could not have put the cyanide in her tea.
So we have an impossible crime. Rex poisoned at breakfast, but everyone ate the exact same food. Adele poisoned at tea, but the person with the motive wasn't there. Gladys strangled in the garden. It's a total mess.
This brings us to the solution, and it is one of the most ingenious mechanical tricks we've seen. Let's start with Rex. How do you poison one person at a breakfast table full of people?
The marmalade. We established he was the only one eating it.
Right, but Inspector Neal tested the marmalade pot that was on the table. It was totally clean. No poison.
So how did it happen?
Here is the trick. A new pot of marmalade was prepared. The killer took a brand new jar, mixed the taxine exclusively into the top layer, and put it on the table before breakfast.
Rex comes down, takes a spoonful from the top, eating the poison.
And then the killer takes that tainted pot away, throws it in the shrubbery where the police later found it, and replaces it with a clean, half-used pot to look exactly like the original.
That is incredibly risky. You'd have to do it right under everyone's noses, or you'd have to be the person explicitly setting the table.
Exactly. Someone in the house had to do the swap. Someone who handles the food as part of their job.
Gladys.
Gladys.
But Gladys is the victim. Why would she kill her master? She had no motive at all. She was just a silly girl.
She didn't know she was killing him. This is the tragic truth Miss Marple saw from the very beginning. Gladys was the weapon, not the mastermind. The true killer is Lance Fortescue.
Lance. The charming brother. The one we actually like. The one Pat loves.
The prodigal son. He is the sociopath behind it all.
But wait, Lance wasn't even in the country when Rex died. He arrived later.
That's his perfect alibi. He used Gladys to do his dirty work. The summer before, Lance met Gladys at a holiday camp. He used a fake name, Albert Evans.
He courted her. He swept her off her feet. He promised marriage.
The Albert from the postcards Miss Marple found in Gladys's room.
Exactly. He told Gladys he was really a wealthy man who'd been cheated out of his inheritance by his wicked father, Rex.
He told her they needed to play a trick on Rex to get the money back so they could get married and run away together.
And the nursery rhyme was the trick.
Yes. He gave her the rye to put in the pocket. He told her it was a magic symbol. He gave her the truth drug, which was actually the deadly taxine to put in the marmalade.
He told her it would just make Rex talk, make him confess everything. Gladys, fully believing she was helping her fiancé, blindly followed the instructions.
That is heartbreaking. She genuinely thought she was the heroine of a romance novel, but she was literally the pawn in a murder plot.
And when Lance arrived home, he didn't even acknowledge her. He walked right past her. He went straight to the library for tea.
He slipped the cyanide into Adele's tea while sitting right next to her on the sofa. He was charming her, smiling at her, and dropping poison into her cup.
He needed that money to stay in the firm just as much as Percival did, but he fully intended to take it all for himself.
And then Gladys. What happened there?
Gladys realized Albert was actually Lance. She saw him. She was the loose end. She was the only witness. He arranged to meet her in the garden.
She probably ran to him thinking, at last, we can be together.
And he strangled her.
And the clothes peg. Why add that?
Cruelty. Pure, unadulterated cruelty. He needed to make sure the police kept looking for a maniac. The clothes peg fit the rhyme perfectly.
It suggested a deranged mind at work. It was a highly calculated move to disguise a cold-blooded financial murder as the work of a lunatic.
But what was the real motive? Just the family money. Percival said the business was failing anyway.
It goes deeper than that. And this is where the historical context of the 1950s hits really hard. the Blackbird mine.
The supposedly worthless mine in Africa.
Rex thought it was worthless. Percival thought it was worthless. But Lance had been in Africa. He had local contacts. He found out the mine contained uranium.
Uranium, of course. It's the Cold War, the atomic age.
Exactly. Uranium was the most valuable substance on the planet in 1953. Lance knew the worthless mine was actually a literal gold mine of the nuclear age.
He wanted the deed. He needed Percival to assign him the worthless shares, which Percival was happy to do because he thought they were trash.
Lance was positioning himself to be one of the richest men in the world.
And he was completely willing to kill his father, his stepmother, and a poor innocent maid to get it.
It completely flips the whole prodigal son trope on its head. Usually in fiction, the stuffy, rule-following brother is the bad guy, and the free spirit is the misunderstood hero.
Christie actively subverts that expectation. Percival Percy Prim is boring, stingy, and deeply unpleasant, but he's innocent of murder.
Lance is charming, funny, and warm, and he is an absolute monster. Miss Marple explicitly calls him wicked.
And Miss Ramsbottom. And Effie.
She knew, or at least she sensed it. She told Miss Marple earlier, wickedness is wickedness and has to be punished. She saw right through Lance's charm when absolutely no one else did.
The tragedy really centers on Gladys, doesn't it?
It does. In a standard thriller, she's just another body count to raise the stakes. But for Miss Marple and for Christie, her death is the one that truly matters.
Her pathetic collection of postcards. Her naive belief in Albert. She died simply because she trusted the wrong person.
It's a dark, dark story.
It is. It reminds us that charm is a tool, and that the most dangerous people aren't always the ones shouting at the staff, like Rex.
They're the ones who smile and make you feel special while they hand you a poisoned cup.
So what does this all mean for you listening? What's the final thought you should take away from this?
I think the real takeaway is about looking past the surface. The nursery rhyme wasn't a game, it was camouflage. Lance Fortescue wasn't a hero, he was a predator.
And Miss Marple, the fluffy old lady with the knitting, was the only one with the steel to see the ugly truth.
And we really have to mention her final advice to Pat, because Pat is the ultimate collateral damage here. She truly loved Lance.
She did. And Miss Marple knows Lance is going to hang for this. She knows Pat's life is about to totally shatter.
Her advice to Pat is so profound. She says, if anything ever goes wrong, go back to where you were happy as a child.
Go back to where you were happy. That's haunting.
It is. It's a stark reminder that when the adult world becomes a crime scene, sometimes the only safety is in the innocence we left behind.
It's a very somber note to end on, but it fits the book perfectly. It's something for you all to think about next time someone seems just a little too charming.
Definitely.
That's a wrap for this deep dive. A nursery rhyme will never sound quite the same again. Thanks for listening.
And check your marmalade.
Yes, definitely check the marmalade. See you next time.